Hello everyone, I'm Brian. Today I'm reacting to Sadhguru in a conversation with the Mystic, Environment and Sustainable Development. So this was a request. I do a request. If you have a request, please leave it in the comments below. Please leave the title, the channel name, and the link. That way I can search for it and find exactly the video you want me to react to. You can leave the link, but it might get put for held for review. And also, I will reply to you if I add it to my list. If I haven't added it, give me a week and then say it again in the comments. Alright, so I've not seen this. Let's go ahead and get started. CC, yes, CC's on. Maybe we can kind of skip the, Oh,
Namaskaram.
never mind.
I'd like to welcome all of you to this session of In Conversation with a Mystic. It seems appropriate to have it here in this newly consecrated sadhana hall, the Adi Yogi Alayam. And just yesterday we saw the completion of a week-long cultural and spiritual program that many of you were a part of, a high-voltage program. And it now seems fitting to move on to yet another episode of a very popular series, In Conversation with the Mystic. In Conversation with the Mystic is a series that was started by Isha a couple of years ago. And the idea was to open up a whole range of conversations on a diverse array of subjects with Sadhguru. And the conversations were conducted by people from different walks of life, people who'd attained some measure of prominence in their respective fields. And it was kick-started by Shekhar Kapoor, the filmmaker, and it's moved on to conversations with several people, musicians, writers, doctors, and several others. It's been a hugely popular series because of its interactive energy. And some of these sessions have been freewheeling, and some of them have focused on a particular theme. And today we have a theme, and a theme that's close to many of us. The theme is the environment. And we have with us today two very special guests. We have Simantini Khote, who's the head of the Suzlon Foundation of the Suzlon Group of Companies in India. We also have Jacques Rocher, who's the president of the Yves Rocher Group and of the Yves Rocher Foundation in France. The theme of the environment is obviously something that many of us are passionate about, and yet environmental protection is often regarded as a matter of public interest, which seems to mean that it's solely the preserve of the government and solely the concern of government agencies. But obviously, that's not the case, and environmental damage is something that implicates industry in a big way, as we all know. And the question is, what is the role of the corporate world in championing the cause of environmental protection and sustainability? Can it play a role? What is its responsibility? Is it equipped to play a role, an effective role? Is it empowered to play such a role? These are
Those are some tough questions. To say that they can only play a role within their own entities, like Walmart. let's say Walmart only controls Walmart. Walmart controls many other stores, I do believe, or their father company or whatever. But Walmart can only regulate its own stores. It cannot regulate other stores. That's the reason why it's been kind of, I do believe, a government base, because government can kind of apply a blanket sweep to all corporations, and then everyone has to follow it. Now there's been, people's been pushing for environmental things, going green and whatnot, and a lot of corporations have, done that. They've tried. It costs a lot of money to make a lot of adjustments, and what else? And sometimes doing it is just not cost effective, and actually doing it could end up increasing the prices of goods. Whenever you have poor people, mostly it's generally anytime there's change, regardless of what it is, it generally affects the poorest the most. And when you say, oh, go green, go green, go green, some people are saying, oh yeah, I'll pay $1 or $2 more per item, but because generally these people are like the upper middle class, and like $1, $2 more per item is a lot of money to people who are not in the upper middle class, and it's kind of crazy. Like these people just I used to think like them too, don't get me wrong. But and that's why I always try to be open-minded to things. I always, again, like I say, take things into consideration. But it's just there are it's very difficult to go green when things just, I mean, the cost of production goes up because, again, having to replace a lot of equipment, and then, I guess you could say corporations don't want to lose money. They want to make sure they continue to make money, more money. But that's the price to pay, I suppose. Just, I don't know. Obviously, we should try to go green, as they say, but not to the point of, the detriment of the poor. Well, when I say poor, I don't mean like, you're broke or anything. I mean poor as in like the middle class and under. Because I consider myself, I don't know where, probably lower middle class, honestly. I don't know. Honestly, I just don't. I don't know where I rate. Anyways, I don't know why I'm even thinking about that. But yeah, just generally people who are not upper middle class generally gets affected the most by these things, and generally the upper middle class are the ones that's like, yeah, we should do all this, do all this, do all this. They're living in their like rich apartments or rich houses and mansions, and they just, because of how their daily lives are, that they don't see, they don't go into poorer neighborhoods, and they don't see how much people are struggling.
Some of the questions that we're
I
going
said
to
a
be
lot of
looking at
stuff.
today. And before I invite our guests on stage, I'd like to very briefly introduce them. Simantini Khote currently heads the Suzlon Foundation, which is the CSR arm of the Suzlon Group of Companies, the world's largest wind manufacturer. She's had over 2 decades of experience in the development sector, and she's been a champion of inclusive growth and participatory development. Her focus has been engagement with marginalized communities, in particular, in authoring and implementing development programs. So there's been a long-standing commitment to issues of equity and justice. And we also have with us today Jacques Rocher, who's the current president of the Rocher Foundation, a corporate foundation of the Yves Rocher Group, which is the world leader and manufacturer of botanical cosmetics, which was founded by his father 50 years ago. Jacques Rocher has inspired this particular group to take a major stand on the issue of environmental responsibility, and he's created the Department of Sustainable Development. He's led the first group of French corporates to attend the Second Earth Summit in Rio, during which the first principles of corporate sustainability were discussed. He's also launched an international award recognizing the role of women and their contribution to the environment. And he's taken on the commitment of planting 50 million trees by the year 2015.
Oh, this is really old.
I'd like to welcome on stage our 2 guests.
Oh, that's good.
And of course, before that, I'd like to invite on stage the person who doesn't need an introduction to this audience at all, Sadhguru.
Yeah, I mean, that's good. I don't react to videos that are like a month or younger or earlier, because it needs to stay out there for a little bit. I much prefer a year or older, but at least over a month at the very least. 2015, whew, I'm way behind. Wow. Hope that doesn't happen too frequently.
Hello, hello.
It's okay, the microphone is here.
Hello. No, hello.
Hello.
Oh, technology. Where's this mic at? Under his beard? I've always wondered whenever he talks, like, where's Mike at? Always hiding under the beard. I'm amazed that he doesn't rustle very much. Actually,
Hello.
yeah, he does that one. Yeah, that's right.
Hello. Yeah, you're right.
Namaskaram. Through this conversation, we are going to better understand one of the most crucial questions of our time. What is the relationship between business and environment? Conceptually, much easier to understand that one cannot grow at the cost of other. But in practice, with a lot of contradiction, we see all over. Businesses in their pursuit to grow use environment which, like businesses, are not created by individuals but over a period of time by communities and cultures, but get used for individual profit pursuits. And in today's competitive environment, business growth means cheaper, more, and continuous supply of cheap raw material. Because in business it's very easy that if your expense is low and your sales price is high, then your profit margins are larger. So in order to make businesses with better profit margins, raw materials, which often come from natural environment, but not just natural, even from social environment, because the entire labor force. So natural environment, social environment, and physical environment are often extracted, not just optimally, but mindlessly, to make sure that your businesses grow faster. So I would say more than business of environment, it's become easiness of environment. Being very easy, taking environment for granted. What in today's situation, when there is competition has not just remained local but global, should businesses do when they are actually aware that's not sustainable, but don't know how to deal with it, because once they start dealing with it, they start becoming unsustainable themselves. So what would be your advice for today's businesses where they want to grow? Because unless people are kept away from environments also won't sustain. So business is required, but how it should not be at the cost of environment. We are struggling with these issues. We are doing our own efforts and experiments, and I am very keen on sharing those. But let's start with some of your advice to companies.
You're going.
Even more so today, apparently, in 2021. The chip shortage, the battery shortage, and all that. I mean, it's true what she's saying. This, to go back, I wanted to pause a little bit earlier about how she's saying how the businesses are making stuff at a very cheap price and selling for a high price, meaning making a large profit. And my belief in that is the fact that, you know, the companies will sell as high as possible until their profits drop. I mean, that's understandable. That's how business works. You want to sell at the most, as much as possible, without losing profit. So basically, if you were to sell something for $50 and make $1 million that year, but if you were to increase the price to $100, you're only making $500,000. You cut your profit in half. You're like, okay, the reason why you're not selling as much is because people are not buying it. They think the price is too high. So you drop the price to increase your profits, but you're selling a lot more. The profit per item is very high, but the sales volume is very low. So yeah, a business, the price of an item will generally be dictated by the marketplace, the demand of it, obviously. And if the price is too high and people are not willing to buy it, then they're not going to sell and they're going to go out of business. So people have a lot of control over the price of things and how much people are willing to spend. So it's kind of a balancing act between the profits of a company and the willingness of the people to pay. But yeah, the environment and how she's saying about how they're just constantly taken from the environment and in a sense never really putting it back. It's kind of true, when we like take a lot of minerals from the earth. I mean, I don't know how in the world you're going to grow back like lithium ion or whatever the minerals needed for them to make that. I don't know what you could, like, if you take plants or trees, you can always replant trees. But like minerals, how do you do that? That is an interesting question, because you take a rock, you can't just put a baby rock there and eventually grow up to be a big rock. It doesn't work that way. So what I mean by rock, like just say minerals in general, things that are not organic, they don't grow, they just yeah, I don't. That's interesting on how we're going to be to have a sustainable mineral. Yeah. Trees, on the other hand, we're hopefully with the digital age, we're not using as much paper anymore. Everything's sent through email. You can do everything pretty much digitally, and that would alone in itself save the environment quite a bit. We're not chopping down as many trees. But yeah, the elements itself, though, it's completely different. When you use it up, it goes to that place, but you can't put nothing in its place to allow it to grow. I don't think. I've not seen that yet.
For the journal. Now, to simplify that very complex question is how to eat the cake and have it too.
That reverb.
So, one thing is we must… Can you do something about the audio, please? Yeah, that's good. One thing is we must learn to eat it slowly. Another is… oh, please. Hello? One thing is we must learn to eat it slowly, which is not the business of the business that you're talking about, which is the business of humanity as a whole. Another thing is we must be able to produce more cake out of less dough. Another thing is we need to reduce the number of mouths which want to eat the cake.
That's impossible. Well, unless you increase the price so high, then they don't want to eat the cake because they can't afford to eat the cake.
There is… See, in our effort to save environment, because it is no more a myth, facts are all arranged in such a way, it is a clear statement. If we go the way we go, where we are going right now, it's a disastrous spot, but we call it business as usual. If we go business as usual, the planet is in for a very serious turndown in the way it functions. So, people will say recycling will help, use alternative power, it'll help. Yes, it'll all help, but in a very minor way. All the alternate systems of power put together, right now they're not even producing 2% of the power requirement in the world.
And this is the thing that I was going to get at, is the fact I've looked at some alternate power, and like wind power itself it takes up so much space and it doesn't generate that much power. And then they have solar power. I think somewhere in the United States they have like areas where they have reflective panels, and they have this one big pole in the middle, that can absorb all that heat or that energy. The problem is that I heard from that area is like when birds fly by, they just instantly vaporize because it's so hot. And I was just making a joke to a friend saying like, man, if you want some fried chicken or something, you just wait out there. Eventually a bird will fly by and get fried, you know, free fried chicken right there. But I have a feeling that area is like really hot too, so it makes it very unlivable. So any animals that go there, well, they you know, they can't exactly live, and birds just get fried. It's so hot, I believe. I mean, it makes sense because they're focusing the sunlight into that one spot, like it's a circular shape, to focus it on that pillar. And I mean, it's better probably. I don't know how. I've not researched into how much power each of these alternate energy produce, but I don't know. I mean, solar power is definitely, in a sense, abundant because generally most days it's not cloudy necessarily, and a lot of people can, you know, put solar panels on their roofs. They can put solar panels over like parking lots so that it can shade the car and also collect the power. But yeah. Nuclear energy, I remember looking into that, but they say that it produces a lot of byproduct, like really radioactive waste, which is the problem. Then I heard recently that no, it's actually really nice and friendly. I'm confused on what it does now, but I heard it produces a lot of power though.
That's a fact. So it's more entertainment. Having windmills, having solar systems, having this is more entertainment value than real value. I'm not trying to beat it down. It is very, very needed. Even 1% is very big. I'm not trying to belittle that effort. But I'm saying we are not yet looking for solutions. We are only looking for slowing down the disaster. We want the disaster… we want to gift the disaster to our children. We don't want it to happen in our time. Isn't it? That's what it means. We don't want the disaster to happen in our lifetime. We want our children to face it. That's all we can do with these kind of interventions. I'm not saying we should stop them. Please don't understand, okay, so it's not needed. No, it is very needed. Very, very needed, and it's very crucial that it must be done. But if we as a humanity, not just as a business, if we as a humanity, we are serious about this, one thing we need to understand is all ecological problems have come because of irresponsible breeding among human beings. In the sense, when I say irresponsible breeding, there is something called as natural selection which the nature is always doing. Because of our intelligence and technologies, now we are capable of seeing every child that is born largely survives in most countries. The infant mortality rate has been considerably brought down in many countries, though still it needs to be worked upon in many other countries yet, including India for that matter.
It's kind of weird how it's saying, like, that's what I was thinking originally, was the fact that our birth rate, our population is just constantly increasing, and, you know, as our population increases, we use more and more stuff, and it's just a matter of time before I guess we use up everything. I don't know. I mean, luckily enough, we don't think we have to deal with it within our time frame, but nonetheless, it's just kind of like we keep pushing the I guess that's what we keep doing. We just keep pushing the problems down the road and hope someone else can figure it out. I mean, it could be just a limitation of technology or ideas. More than likely, it's a limitation of technology. I mean, if you can put like a solar panel that hovers above the earth and it can just face the sun 24/7, and somehow there's an umbilical cord that comes down to the earth and just provides power. That way, rain, sleet, shine, or whatever, you know, the solar panel is outside of the atmosphere, or maybe not the outside atmosphere, but maybe within the atmosphere, but outside the cloud, so it's never, you know, blocked. And also the other technology I remember they were talking about is the waves technology, which, from what I heard, doesn't generate very much energy as well.
But the important thing is, medical sciences kind of postponed our death.
Yeah.
But we are refusing to postpone the birth.
Well,
we have, to some extent.
Yes.
Women were bearing children at 14, Now I think average childbearing age has become over 22, which is a little bit of postponement. But we know at 7 billion or 7.2 billion, it's not an effective postponement.
The problem is that generally, I'm sorry, I keep pausing too much, but it's the fact that we gotta keep. Okay, the problem is the fact that I think even though we've come to live a lot longer lives, there's still this. Now, don't punish me for this now, but I think women do have a limited time to when they can give birth. So postponing that later and later, it doesn't mean like it's gonna allow them to postpone their menopause. I believe that's what's the cause of them not being able to have babies anymore. There is that time limit for them, and that hasn't changed very much compared to when they're able to give birth. Able to give birth, it fluctuates between, I don't know what age, 14 I guess, to, I don't know, 16 I guess, I don't know. But I guess the age whenever they can't give, or the age at the very least where they start having issues, I heard at one state 25, but that seems a bit low, but 35 is what I hear mostly, in at least developed countries is 35. So that age hasn't went up. Well, actually it has, but it went up a lot slower than the postponement and anything else.
Now, coming to the businesses, we need to understand whatever one's business may be, the problem right now is, instead of using commerce for our well-being, we are driven by commerce. I will come to more practical solutions, but it's very important we understand the present situation in which we are in. At the rate at which we are biting at the cake, there'll be no cake after 25, 30 years. That's a very conservative amount of time. More drastic people say 10, 12 years. Planet has enormous capability to recoup from the damage that it goes through. But we have to allow a certain amount of time, otherwise it cannot recoup.
Yep. It'll heal slowly.
So either we consciously handle this, or Mother Earth will do it to us in a cruel manner. This possibility is looming in front of us, but we are in a mode of self-destruction. So I'm not making this out to be a doom story or a doom prediction. The important thing is the gravity of what we are facing has to be realized. You don't try to lift a ton of weight with your little finger. Right now, that's what we're trying to do. A massive, a mega problem, we are trying to handle with small incentives here and there. For a drowning man, even a straw, holding onto a straw seems to be a great support, that's different. But that's not the way it needs to be addressed if you're serious about a solution. Right now, what I see in the world is that seriousness is not there. We are still trying to satisfy somebody. We want to look eco-friendly in front of somebody else. We are not looking at ecology, that it is in a drastic phase right now, that if we do not do the corrective action right now, we will pass on a legacy which we will be ashamed of and for which we will be accused and hated for by our children, by the next generation of people. Is it all in the hands of business? No. It is not in the hands of business alone.
It's the consumer, because if people stop buying stuff, the business will either have to change to put out what the consumer wants, or will go out of business. So don't get me wrong, consumers, at least in terms of the Western world, they're just so materialistic. Hey, I am too, but I try to control that. I don't got money. So, I'm obviously we're all in a sense part of the problem. Some more than others. And we in a sense drive what the businesses produce. The business, all they can do is just say, hey, you want this, and it's up to us whether we buy it or not. We have the power to change how businesses operate in a sense by buying or not buying their stuff.
But business can play a significant role. Like you have made a business out of ecological solutions, that's wonderful because making a business out of it is very important. Jack is doing something as a contribution. For you, that's a business itself. I think it's important that it becomes a business because then only it is sustainable. We're talking about sustaining the ecology, but first of all, the business has to sustain itself. If any human activity has to sustain itself, the two parties involved in it both should benefit. Only then you can sustain the activity. If only one party benefits, it is not going to be forever, it will fall apart. Whether it's the business of mega interactions between corporations or nations, or within communities, or even between two human beings. If your marriage has to work, it should be beneficial to both the people. If it's only one person being benefited, it's not going to be there for long, isn't it?
And this is something that my belief system tends to work, which is something that I apply to the individual. Generally, it can expand out to an individual, a pair, a group of people, a city. Now, I'm not saying it always works that way, but generally speaking, so far it has. So whenever I apply a rule or whatever to an individual person, my thoughts on that expands out into even governments as well.
So in that sense, it is best that every ecological solution becomes a kind of a business, because only then it can be sustained over a period of time. What can the businesses do? Other businesses which are not involved in ecology, whose business is not ecology but they have some other business, now the engine is roaring somewhere, they know that it is causing damage to ecology, but you can't stop the engine. All of us need the engine to roar. We all want the engines in the world to be roaring. Even if it stops for a moment, we will all complain. So we are in this mode where the humanity as a whole has still not faced the reality the way it is. Probably this is the unfortunate way of the humanity, the disaster has to strike, then only they will know. So the larger humanity, this could be true, but the more aware humanity which is in the positions of responsibility and power, this part of the humanity has to act now. But right now, we are doing ecological awareness all over the world and asking common humanity to act. But a humanity which can make a difference, that small segment which holds the power of the world, that is not yet acting. For whatever political reasons, military reasons, economic reasons, all kinds of reasons. And one reason, I feel, is the democratic setups that we have. Lot of leaders are refusing to have long-term vision, their vision is only for 4 years or 5 years.
Yep.
In India, it is only 4 or 5 years, in United States, it's 8 years, 4 plus 4. Beyond that, people are not thinking, they want to produce maximum results in that, they are not thinking very long. So it is the democratic setup of the world. So some kind of international law which we are working towards, endlessly working towards, it should just take a day to arrive at it, if all of us were willing, but it's going on. So where does the business fit into all this?
Can we go a little… Before we get into these larger issues, I would like to take it back to the way businesses are conducted. Yes, cakes have to be made, cakes are needed, but the way cakes are made, can we bring some difference in that? It could be, say, in a solar oven vis-a-vis chopping trees and having a furnace that needs wood. By making it this way or that way, you are keeping those resources in the environment available for alternative things. That way, your ability to continue to make cake also a little longer. I think today we are talking about, there's no question about whether businesses are required, engines need to run, cakes need to be made or not. That is for sure. But how those can be made in a more win-win way that pleases everybody, as you said. Can I just give an example? Even the
Okay. I don't know what she's gonna say, but I understand what she means by like it may take the process a little bit longer, but it's more eco-friendly. The problem with that is that when, say, the consumption of a product, say there's 80 products get sold a day, and they sell all 80. And and after those 80 are sold, no one else comes in and asks for more. So they sold exactly what was required for that day. The next day, they make 90 products. Only 80 get sold again. It's like, okay, you know, we found out what the right amount to make. It's about 80, maybe 85, just in case there's some stranglers that come in. Next day, they decide to go a little bit eco-friendly. It's like, okay, you know, we'll have to ramp down production because the equipment we're using are more green, but it can't produce as much. So we say 60. Now, whenever you sell those 60, there's 20 people out there that wants that product. It's like, hey, man, I want one. Some people are willing to pay more to get that product. So what ends up happening is the pricing goes up. It's the basic, I like to believe it's the basics of economics, supply and demand. The more demand there is, the higher the price will be. The more supply there will be, the less, the lower the price, because they have so much. If they have, like, say they make 90 every day and they only sell 60, well, there's 30 left over, and then the next day they make another 90 and they only sold 60. Now there's 60 left over. It's like, well, we need to get rid of this before it goes bad, otherwise we're going to lose money. So you're going to lower the price to maybe hopefully get people to buy maybe 2 instead of 1. So if they lower the price and they sell all 90 of them every day, that's perfect. Maybe they'll increase the price just a little bit, just to see if people are willing to pay more. If they continue to sell those 90, it's like, okay, we'll increase it a little bit more. It's just kind of how I do believe markets tend to balance themselves. You know, when people see that something's not selling very well, they'll lower the price to see if people will bite. If things are selling so well, they'll increase the price to see what people are willing to pay. It'll eventually balance itself out. But I'm wondering if she's going to say that. Let's find out.
ecological solutions that you're talking about, say using wind to produce energy instead of building dams to rehabilitate people, or nuclear energy, which can be apparently very dangerous, or use of coal in thermal power plants. If wind energy is done in a way that does not consider local communities' interest, even wind energy we will not be able to produce for too long. We had a last conversation
I was just about to make a proposal to you for that.
Yeah, in fact 3 years ago you
So I
advised
want to make the
me.
proposal very public so that you can't go back on it.
No, 3 years ago you did advise, and we had a conversation and we talked about the use of land around turbines. And in last 3 years, I'm very happy to tell you that about 4,800 hectares of area around turbines, we started using in a way that the local communities will also find their livelihoods in it. We said that even if we just harvest rainwater in the areas around turbines, the groundwater levels improve, soil moisture improves, fodder cultivation is possible, local cattle get more healthier and give more milk, and local people then don't hate wind energy companies to acquire land. Because these ecological solutions are seen by governments and the bodies that you're talking about as much better than extractive industries. At the same time, even those green sector industries will have to think about social sanctions.
Sorry, I want to pause there before she goes too far. And then people won't hate when those companies get land. No. I can't tell the future, but the problem is when you get those lands is whether they use them for what it's intended for or not. So you're going to have government power in there just to make sure that the companies do that. And you're giving a lot of land to a company, which you're already kind of, well, not necessarily against, but basically you could end up having a wind turbine company own so much acreage of land, and then if they find an alternate energy source, that's their land now. People don't own it because it's given to them from the people or the government to build wind turbines, which is not being used anymore. So now they have all this land that they own, and I don't know. I don't think they can get it. They can give it back. I don't think they can give it back to the government or anything. They can sell it back and again make free money off that land because it's technically theirs. I don't know how she's gonna, write that off. Like, okay, you can use this lands for X amount of years, and we'll constantly renew the contract. And then, the problem is that the company's not going to want to build somewhere. We're saying, hey, we need to guarantee that this land's going to be ours for the next 40 years. This is the only way we can make money because it costs $40 billion to make one wind turbine, and it takes 40 years for the wind turbine to pay for itself, assuming nothing goes wrong. It may need 50 years, and then we will make a profit off the wind turbine finally after 50 years. So that's kind of why, I guess that's kind of the reason why, I'm overcomplicating it. I think too much, but that's, I guess, a reason that you maybe can't do a contract of X number of years, because they may not bite on that. Trust me, every company is going to try to find their way to own the land, because they'll say, hey, yeah, we'll just give us the land and we'll promise to make wind turbines. We didn't say when we're gonna make it, but we will eventually, or something like that. Not to say that they're scammy people, it's just that you just don't know.
And social sanctions will come only when the cakes are also available for them to taste.
So I told you that land could be used to enhance the rural life in a tremendous way.
Absolutely. So we are now, actually we have fodder development, we have organic agriculture plots, there is definitely rainwater harvesting in as many areas, and through Project Green Hands we want to plant trees, and we have continued to plant trees. But this is where our business started getting a different response from local communities. The reason companies like Suzlon started CSR was they were fumbled, as to what to do with this local community. We have this wonderful business, no pollution, we are not creating any harm. Why still people are not ready to accept wind energy? And when they realize that they have nothing to do with wind, but with the land around, because governments are giving away revenue lands, forest lands. People who depend on such lands in countries like India, 80% of the people who depend on land do not own that land. But their survival depends on using that land. But someone who controls decisions related to these lands do not depend on those land at all, so they just transact land as if it was something as an object to be transacted. So we started looking at land that is for local communities, their subsistence, their survival, their pride, and no government and companies can be seen transacting them in between themselves. And when we then included local communities' interest in what would make them accept wind energy better. And then they said, if wind energy comes, then comes more rainwater harvesting, more fodder, and more land for experimentation. Then they see wind energy as their friend. So it's very important, as you said, that people need to eat the cake and eat it slowly and also make it available for others. So I think it's about not doing different businesses, but doing the same business differently, by taking into account all these other interests and limitations to be converted into opportunities.
So definitely this needs to be done, there's no question about it, but still, this is still a band-aid treatment to a cancerous, malignant situation. Still a band-aid treatment.
I guess the problem is the sheer fact that wind energy, I do wonder how much do those turbines produce energy, like I don't know, per day, on an average day. What do they produce, I suppose? Like, is it enough, like 1 or 2 turbines is enough to run maybe 1 or 2 houses? If that's so, and considering that whenever you build these turbines, they need so much land, they need a lot of space between them. And then I've seen some videos on YouTube when these turbines, when I guess they put them out in really good fields to collect a lot of strong winds, and whenever they're spinning out of control and they break, dude, if that was on something, if someone was building their house underneath there, or they had a pasture, I kind of like her idea with the fact that they have pastures, like maybe cows roaming around it, using it for more than just a wind turbine. Yeah, if that thing freaking breaks because it's spinning so fast and it lands on your house, your car, or you, or your cows, or your whatever's around that area and kills, geez, kind of scary, I guess. But I mean, so long as it's maintained and everything, But yeah, I mean, you just have to wonder how much power these alternate energies can produce. And I think solar produces a bit more, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I have no solution to that problem.
For a serious malignant situation. I'm not saying today if you need a Band-Aid, it should not be fixed. It should be fixed, no question about that. But using the land for people's well-being, this is also something I wanted to suggest to you, that instead of buying these lands, if you set up these windmills even in fertile lands on a rental basis, that you pay the rent to the farmer. Right now somebody has put up a hoarding or a cell phone tower, they pay 10,000 rupees rent. And the farmer is very happy, he doesn't mind quarter acre of land is wasted, but he's getting 10,000 rupees a month rent. And his livelihood's taken care of, now his farming is better done. So we should also think of setting up windmills in even fertile lands.
Not a bad idea. Although I will say though, again, there has to be some kind of… the government still has to be involved because, the people who own the lands it's like, nope, you gotta pay me more, otherwise you remove what you just built, it's on my property. So the government has to take place and say what's a fair amount, that a third party basically, which is gonna have to be the government. And from the property owner and the person renting out, say, hey, okay, for the next 5 years, this is going to be the price to pay every month or year, and then we'll redo it again in another 5 years, because you have to adjust for inflation. You can't keep constantly paying the same price every year when the price of everything goes up and the rent stayed the same. Rent is going to go up, but the government should be able to negotiate between the two a fair price.
Agricultural plots, offering them a rent for the land rather than buying it up. Because a farmer may sell his land today because of some dire requirement for economic help, for monetary reasons. But once he sells his land, he's not selling land, he's selling his soul. After that, he doesn't know how to live, and his life, even if you give him market price, I'm saying, even if you offer him a market price, his life just goes down after that. Unless the next generation gets educated and becomes urban population. In the village, for him to live without the land is a disastrous way to exist for a human being.
So that he continues to cultivate, and in fact cultivate better than before.
Yes.
And sees a win-win, in allowing someone to even evacuate wind. We are of course into that now we want to lease rather than buy. But government is also giving patches of land to wind energy kind of companies, solar energy companies to use. Those are more barren lands, and even on those, some people who are at the bottom of pyramid, they are cultivating and surviving. For this kind of transition to happen, it's not just companies, governments and local people, but even commercial world. For example, this whole business of guarantee, hypothecation, the banks have to learn to accept these new models of development, and for that the point that you had come to, that the larger…
There are two aspects to this, Simantini. One thing is, if we look at the larger ecological situation, it's one way. If you're just talking about developing alternate energy sources like wind, solar, whatever, it's another way. But I'm saying, how much ever wind you blow, there's only that much wind which blows upon the planet. There is more sun, but we're still not able to use it in any big way. In spite of doing this, right now our energy requirements the way they are, we are going to fulfill a very small percentage. Definitely all these things need to be done, there's no question. But you asked a very large question in the beginning and now you're trying to focus it on wind only. If it is wind only or solar only, alternative systems of energy only, that is a different question.
No,
but if it's a serious ecological question…
No, even the business in which Jack is…
No, he just changes the environment of the society by making the woman look much better than… He just changes the environment that way.
He could have done similar products out of some chemicals only or more synthetic products, but they choose to make pure natural resources and packaging them, which will compete with some other cheaper products. And therefore, I don't know, I would like to know more from you, the eco-friendly products that you make. in competition with available products in the market, is that a challenge, and how do you deal with those? Because we are talking about ecological solution, making feasible, making acceptable, and to grow.
I'll say, I want to know if my theories are correct. So that's why I'm answering these questions, trying to see if I come out right, if my knowledge that I've obtained is even anywhere near close to being correct. So, I mean, if he's going green with his stuff, meaning, you know, using reusable resources, essentially maybe even growing the products like in a laboratory, or, you know, having maybe land that can regrow whatever he needs and use that, and that way he's not going out into the environment. That's going to cost a lot more than going into the environment, than going into nature, because generally it's going to be a lot cheaper to, say, go to wherever and just harvest it and take. Like she was talking about earlier, a lot of people just go out and just grab stuff from the environment and never replenishing it. The earth will be able to replenish it, but it takes a lot of time, like Sadhguru was saying. But for a good eco-friendly business would be able to grow their own products within, say, like a certain amount of land and continue to regrow and grow and grow. But the problem with that is the fact that the amount of products they can make is limited based on how much area they have. So if they have 100 acres and you're using 100 acres, or yeah, this 100 acres, let's just give it that way. If they have 100 acres and they're using, they're 100% efficient with 100 acres, they can only put, say, 100 products out there, and only 100 people can get it. It's not enough. They will need to have more land to be able to make more stuff, and then to cultivate and to grow these things takes time, and you have to pay people to grow these things and to take care of them, which increases the cost of the product. So instead of just going out there and harvesting it from nature and taking it back, which you just pay one person to go grab that, you don't have to grow it, you don't have to cultivate it, you don't have to do anything with land, you don't have to do anything but just to go and grab it. It's a lot cheaper. That's what I feel like she's getting at, which is true. You know, it's a lot easier to grab what's already there and use it for yourself than having to have something that's green or renewable and then cultivate it, because it costs a lot more. You have to have, again, to grow the product, to raise the product, to make sure it's healthy and not dying, and then to pay someone to do all of that, and then to pay for the product so that you can grow it, all increases the cost of the money, increases the cost of the product. What else was I going to say about that? So going green is a great idea, but it's going to be, I don't know if to say significantly more expensive would be the right word, but it will be expensive. Just because of, you know, plus, you know, it being all natural, it's really nice as well. And sometimes there's companies out there who can make synthetic stuff that it's not all that great, but it's a lot cheaper. And I'm going to pause right here before answers. Hopefully you remember this for next time. Alright, anyways, this is part 1. Hopefully I'll do this. It looks like it's going to be in 3-parter. Alright, so that's my reaction to Sadhguru in the conversation with Mystic, environment, and sustainable development. If you like my content, please consider subscribing. Thumbs up, thumbs down below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next vid.